I'm not really sure if I believe in ghosts. My family believes like really strongly in them because my mom thinks she like grew up with them in her house. Me personally, I think it's definitely possible.
Well, yeah, of course I believe in ghosts.
It depends. Depends on the scenario.
Absolutely not.
Science proves that ghosts aren't real.
My mom always talks about how like she always sees her mom, that she's no longer with us. So she always talks about how like she's had occurrences where she'll like feel her presence kind of thing. So that kind of made me believe that there is something out there.
Whenever I go downstairs, I have this like feeling that somebody's behind my back.
I don't have a valid reason. I just don't believe that there's ghosts.
Just I kind of believe that people from past, like people who have died, can communicate with us, but I don't think there's like ghosts throwing pots and pans around.
Last year, I actually had a water bottle fly across the room while I was sitting in my bed. No one else was in the room. It just flew across the room. So I'm thinking that there's probably a ghost that lives in Maplewood.
Keep an open mind because you never know like what's out there.
One night, I was sleeping, and I'm laying here under the covers, and I wake up, and sitting at the bottom of my bed was an old lady just sitting here, just like this, and just staring at me and my husband. And I just looked at her. I looked at my husband. I couldn't move. I was totally frozen. And she just peacefully sat here. And then I looked away, I looked back, and she was gone. I guess the old lady sitting at the bottom of the bed was pretty much at the beginning of us living here. So that was probably the first real connection that we saw, which was probably like 19, 20 years ago. This house, it's definitely here. You could just, they'll pass by you during broad daylight. They're just part of the house. They lived here before me. So I feel like they have dibs on it, and we just cohabitate. My father passed away in this house. He died expectedly in one of the rooms in the back, and so maybe he's hanging in here too. I haven't seen him. Only thing we heard from my father was the radio. So it was a couple of years ago, and we were sitting at the counter, and it was this quiet. No TV, no radio, no noise. All of a sudden, we hear a radio. We're like looking for the radio, thinking it's going to be on. And we find the radio, and it was in his drawer, but it was completely off. These spirits don't scare me at all. They don't freak me out. As a matter of fact, I kind of feel like they're like protecting us. Like they're here for a reason, and they're not there to freak us out or bother us or chase us out of our own house. They're just here because they belong here.
I do not believe in paranormal activity. I don't like to believe in superstition. I feel that's rather old-fashioned and outdated. It's a simple-minded thing to do, to believe in ghosts and other things. I'm on the side of science because they're able to come up with explanations for things. For people who believe in paranormal activity, they just say, it's ghosts. I'm not satisfied with that explanation. If that is the real answer, great. But I don't have any evidence suggesting that. It's just, like I said, random occurrences. There's a logical answer. For example, you might hear cracks or thumps in your house. It could be a raccoon in your attic, or your house gets old, so sometimes the wind does things to your house where if your house is old, it'll cause cracks and indents, so that's why when you look in your ceiling upstairs, You might find little holes or little pieces peeling off your ceiling. That's not because of ghosts, it's because the wind in your house is, well, old. As a kid, I was a big Houdini guy, and I always wanted, because every year they hold a seance to see if Houdini can defeat death, so to speak, and every year it doesn't work, and there's a reason, because there's no ghosts.
A year ago, a little over a year ago, my Nonna had passed away on September 11th, and I always felt like I never really got closure on her, or I felt guilty because I was away at school, and I'm a resident assistant, and last year I was a resident assistant in a first year building, and one of my residents was like, I'm sensitive to spirit, like, let me use a Ouija board and see if we can get a hold of your grandmother. How could a Ouija board, probably a Ouija board from KB Toys, like how could that possibly get my grandmother? I just was like, well, I'm interested to see because I've never experienced a Ouija board before. And I was like, I want to just see kind of how they do it, and then if I'm open to the idea of having them conduct a reading or whatever it's called, then we'll go from there. I asked the question, I was like, is my Nonna here? Please identify yourself. And the board moved over to yes. Keep in mind that none of the girls conducting this knew about my grandmother, knew about my relationship with her, anything really about me. It was only a month into the school year, so I was walking into this blind with pretty much strangers. The one thing that completely convinced me that this thing is real was, so I asked, what is something that you always said to me, always? And the board spelled out B-R-E-A-D, which is bread. And my Nonna and I had this little inside joke that you have to eat a lot of bread to live a full life. And when that was conveyed to me, I completely lost it. And I just felt like she was with me there. And it was the coolest experience ever, and I felt closure. I felt like I got to talk to her before she passed on because I didn't originally get to have the opportunity with her. So that experience was incredible, and I'm more open to the idea of paranormal activity or events or communicating with the spirit world. I just think that now that I'm more open to it, I let those little happenings happen and take them for what they are, because the only spirit that I want communicating with me is my grandmother, and that's the only spirit that I find communicating with me. So I thank that experience, and I'm grateful for that Ouija board experience because I got to have a really cool opportunity and make myself somewhat believe even more that there is a possibility for the paranormal world to communicate with us.
I think since you have everybody moving the board, you can easily just have the answer that you want. Either that or, like I said, dumb luck plays a role in these things as well. I'll do it for this, just for the laughs. I'll giggle at it, but I don't have much. Don't put much stock into a Ouija board. I don't have a belief in evil spirits no more than good spirits. They're both equally invalid.
I feel like science explains to us formulas of how things occur, but they don't explain to us why. So, yes, you can explain to me and give me the formula as to how this apple falls from the tree, but you don't tell me why it does. You don't tell me the significance of it.
If you have a piece of evidence that convinces me otherwise, then yes, you can convince me. But for right now, with the evidence that we have, no.
You just have to understand that it's a big universe and there's a lot of things out there that are unexplained, and either you accept it or you're in denial of it.